Welcome to Sports Management Podcast, where you will hear interesting sports management professionals share their stories, experiences, and passion for the sports management industry. I am your host, Marcus Philipsson. Welcome to episode 136 of Sports Management Podcast. Did you know that 65% of you who listen to this podcast do not yet subscribe? That means that you are at risk of missing out new episodes, and with the lineup that I have for 2024, that is not something you want to miss. So hit that subscribe button on your podcast app, and together we will grow Sports Management Podcast. Thank you. Now, today's guest is Kareem Rae, the founder and CEO of One Soccer Nation, which provides players an opportunity to sign professional contracts. Kareem is a former semi-professional soccer player with over 20 years of experience playing in Canada, US, France, and England. He's also the author of the book I Want to Become a Professional Soccer Player, which he wrote at age 18. He has a great vision for One Soccer Nation, and in this episode we spoke about the possibility to own his own club, founding One Soccer Nation, soccer as a vehicle for change, Kareem's playing career, helping players go pro, the future of One Soccer Nation, and much more. Kareem Rae, welcome to the Sports Management Podcast.
Thank you so much for having me on, Marcus.
It's my great pleasure. You are the founder and CEO of One Soccer Nation. So can you tell us a little bit about that and what you do with this company?
Absolutely. So One Soccer Nation started back in 2020 with just the logo. So me and my buddies, designer of mine, we were working on the logo, and he came up with 90 plus different font sizes, colors, so on and so forth. And we started deleting them. So it was me, Daniel, and Mohammed. We started deleting different logos, and we came up with the one. And then we were like, okay, this was the one. And then from there, it was One Soccer Nation. So we started off with the logo. Then we went on to podcasting, interviewing coaches, scouts, agents, club owners, everyone within the beautiful game, on and off the field. And that allowed me to learn so much about the beautiful game. And then from there, it transitioned into more of a business. So our goal is to launch a professional soccer team. Basically, what One Soccer Nation grew into now is we want to give unknown superstars the chance to go pro. And the short pitch is our goal is to invite 100 players to a tryout in the US, 80% from the US, 20% international, and guarantee that 25 out of the 100 players will sign a professional contract. Now, that's a bold statement, guaranteeing. How we plan on doing that is by launching our own professional soccer team, which means we'll have full control of its operations and decision-making. So we'll be able to guarantee that these guys sign professional contracts. And we want to duplicate that business model for the women's side as well. And I'm a big advocate for the women's side, and sign 25 women to professional contracts.
When are you seeing that you will have your own club and your own team?
Yeah, absolutely. So I've been at it for about 2 years now, Marcus. It's been a journey. I went from a player to an entrepreneur, businessman. I always had that entrepreneurship in me, but it developed throughout the years. So one of the things that really helped was, one of the things was research, learning, talking to people that were doing it. So interviewing club owners, getting connected to the expansion team. The second big thing for me after learning was attending events. So I got invited to the United Soccer League's mid-year event, which I got to meet a lot of high net worth individuals, meet the league operators, and new investors like ourselves interested to learn more about the league and invest into the league to own a club. And that event actually was the event that changed my paradigm, because I got to see how high net worth individuals interacted with each other, and the things that they were talking about, and the information that they were sharing. It was very different from what I was used to. So from that point on, it really inspired me and motivated me to, this is the circle that I want to be in. So a few of the other events that helped me network was Soccer X that recently happened back in November in Miami, in the Magic City, the United Soccer Coaches Convention that happened last year in 2023. And yeah, I mentioned that in Philadelphia at the convention center, 15,000 people were there. So that was a huge event. And then the other one that I went to was the US Soccer Foundation event down in BC. So it was like a non-for-profit, which was pretty interesting. When I hear non-for-profit, I get a little like, okay, what is that? But now I know a little bit more. So it's pretty cool. But honestly, those steps that I was taking and podcasting, all three of those things were a great mix to help me along the journey with where I was going with launching the team, because you need the connections, you need the information. The next thing for us is the capital. How do we get the capital that we need to make this thing, make this idea a reality?
That's super interesting. And I mean, your background is important in this case with the One Soccer Nation because you want to help soccer players go pro, and you were a soccer player yourself who wanted to go pro. So can you tell us a little bit about your background?
Absolutely. So started playing at the age of 5, grew up in Canada, played all the way from grassroots to semi-pro per se. 2018, I went to England for 6 weeks on a pilot trip, got picked up by Reading FC, didn't fully go through. Don't even honestly know the reason why. From my understanding, what I was told was that these clubs, if they have a player in the same country that's at the same level, they'll take them over you because it's less time, less money, less documents. Boom. So when I got a taste of England, Reading FC, knowing that Reading FC had an interest in me, gave me the full confidence that, okay, this is actually possible. And coming from a place like Canada, where we didn't have a professional league at the time in 2018, it was like, okay, whoa, I could do this. Not in my backyard. I got to go international. So 2019, another opportunity came through. Shout out Coach Bassam Naim from Canada at AMB Academy. He sent me out to France for 3 months. I was playing with a club called LeMay, a Division 4 semi-pro. And the club was interested in keeping me. The only thing was that I had to get a visa. So I had two options, either a school visa or a work visa. A school visa, you can't get paid. And a work visa, you can get paid. Now, at 19 at the time, your mind's all over the place still. I wasn't able, and I didn't really have the support at the time to help me stay focused on getting the visa from the club or from anyone around my side. So, and everyone's busy at the time. So that opportunity, I missed that opportunity because I didn't do what I had to do in order to get the visa. So I came back to Canada, didn't go back to France because I couldn't stay longer. After 3 months, you have to come back to Canada. So I'm learning as I go. 2020 COVID, and during COVID, I stayed fit, stayed ready. 2021 came, I connected with Enoch Shomi. He was a professional soccer player from Leeds United, and he's now retired in Florida, Naples. So I connected with him on LinkedIn and had him on the podcast, learned a lot. I was like, okay, wow. This was during COVID too. So I'm like, I'm connecting with a pro. Can you help me out? So he was with a club called Naples United FC, which was the last team I played for. They play in the NPSL Division 4 in the US soccer pyramid. So I asked him, I was like, hey, can you help me out? He's like, yeah, can you come out to Naples? So I said, of course. And remember, I was staying fit, prepared for an opportunity to come, which was a hard time to do that. So 2021 came, I got prepared, went down to Florida, Naples, and I was down there for 6 months. Amazing experience, amazing facility, and they just recently launched a new professional soccer team down in Naples. So I'll leave it at that.
Now you have that experience of trying to go pro. What was difficult to go abroad? And this experience, how are you leveraging that now when you at One Soccer Nation, when you are helping players who used to be in your place?
That's a great question. So a lot of the things that I didn't have anyone to guide me. It's saying, hey, Kareem, these are the exact steps that you need to take in order to go pro. I was going through different experiences at first hand. So things like going to different countries is expensive. If you're funding it, that's not usually how you become a pro. It's usually they scout you and they cover all your expenses. So if I knew that, there's a different understanding and intention behind it then. The other thing is visas. If you're going to another country, you have to know that you have to get a work visa in order to get paid, in order to survive. So I didn't know that. Again, that's another thing. And I've went through personally my US green card visa now, and it's taking me 2 years and I'm still not done yet. Right. So the visa process is not simple. It depends on what visa you're going to. So that could get that could be depending on your situation. The other thing I'll mention about visas is that an immigration lawyer can help you. So I've spoken to a few, and we have one now to help us with our project with bringing international players over so we can take care of that for them. So there's different things. I'll just keep it simple. The 3 things I mentioned is players will come across financial, political barriers that will stop them from going pro. So I have a saying that's on the deck that there are better players in the world that are not on the big stage right now because of those things that they're facing. And if we could help remove those barriers and provide them a pathway to become professionals and give them the environment and space and information that they need to be successful, we believe that we can create 25 amazing stories. So we have a reality TV show, a part of the tryout. We have a service agreement with Gladiator, where we're going to capture all the drama, emotion, and excitement to share their story, because they're going from top talent players to 25 players signing professional contracts. So we want to capture all that. And that's one of our biggest marketing pieces.
That's really cool. And I mean, that's really what people want now. You have all the Netflix shows, you know, that behind the scenes content. And I think that's a really cool marketing play for sure.
Thank you.
Also, you said that you have always had this entrepreneurial side of you, and you were a startup owner at Hype Sports Innovation, and now obviously founder and CEO of One Soccer Nation. So where do you think this entrepreneurial things come for you?
You know, since I was young, selling chocolates for our soccer team, $2, me and my cousin, you know, going out to the hospital, going to the mall, you know, selling chocolates for $2 at a time where people were still holding coins and spending coins, you know, getting kicked out from the hospital and the mall because you're not allowed to do that unless you have a permit or something along those lines. Those experiences, I wrote a book, creating a book. I didn't even think I could write a book, and you know, having that seed planted in me by my mentor Jay Waterman, saying, "Hey, do you know how to go pro?" No. Well, you should write a book. Why? Oh, well, because you need to know exactly what you need to do in order to get where you want to go. Okay. So what do I need to do? All right, watch this video. This is how you write a book, and go and do it. So I was 18 at that time. I created a book. It took a few months. At 19, I got to 19 and I didn't even publish it. It took me a few more months to gain the confidence to release it to the world, because you're putting yourself out there. So these different experiences, entrepreneurship, I'd say the last one too, is selling online. I was doing that at 18, 19, 20. People were buying products from me, books, soccer balls, soccer equipment. And I was like, I don't even know these people. I haven't even met them, but they're coming to this site, this ClickFunnels that I've created, and they're going through the process of the sale. So, you know, these different experiences powered me up per se.
I understand that. And as you said, like writing a book at age 18, that's brave and putting yourself out there. So you wrote it actually because it's called I Want to Become a Professional Soccer Player. So you also wrote it to help yourself in a way.
Yes. So there was two things. I was writing the book to learn how to do something hard at 18. Your mind's all over the place. I would say for me, at least I was. And at the time I was working at the office. I was going to soccer, home, work, soccer, home. So I was going through those patterns, writing the book at the office and going through that pattern. Writing the book helped me organize my mind, give me the confidence that I could do something that I didn't know that I could do, figure out how to do something I didn't know how to do it. And then again, there was some time that it took me in my mind to say, hey, I'm going to actually share this. So it was for myself, and then it was for the world, because a book can be created once and duplicated a million times.
Fantastic. If the listeners want to grab a copy, where can they find it?
Yeah, so you could just go to Amazon, type in Kareem, Kareem, space Rae, Rae, and a green book will pop up. It's called I Want to Become a Professional Soccer Player. Wrote it at 18, guys. So, you know, go easy on me there. We'll come up with some new books soon, but we're focused on the club. So, yeah.
Nice. Speaking of experiences and what you can bring, you have also lived in several countries while playing. You mentioned some before: France, England, Canada, US. What are some learnings you have taken from different countries' cultures that you can now implement in your business?
Going to different countries, it's different cultures, different experiences. I would say when I went to England, that really opened my eyes to what soccer is, but it's not soccer, it's called football there. So what football is. And the first game I ever watched was Arsenal versus Everton at Everton Stadium. And the energy that I experienced was like, whoa, I like this. Like, we were standing up when the ball was coming to our side and sitting down and standing up and sitting down and then standing the whole game, right? And like, experiencing what that was like and having 20,000 plus in this people in the stadium, that was my first experience in Europe. I've been to an MLS game, Toronto FC. It was nothing like Europe. And then after, like going to the bars and just sitting down and just watching games for hours, like I'm like, I've never done this before. I love it. These guys breathe, eat, sleep soccer. So that was amazing. France, I love France. The the type of football that's played too is completely different. So England, it's muddy. It's like get the ball and go. Balls in the air, a little bit here and there. Really great talent. They're playing in very, very muddy conditions, and players are really good. France was more turf for me, my experience I'm speaking from. And I thought France was just going to be all on the ground. And no, it was on the ground in the air, but very technical, very, very technical players, very fast, tall, strong. So if I had to say, I'd have to choose France football over England players per se and talent wise. And then the US is a different beast. It's soccer, not football. And what do I say about it? It's still developing. We're not there yet, but it's still developing. But I would say the big thing with the United States is a lot of the money is made in college and university soccer. And then the professional landscape is much better now with the developments that they've had. There's actually now a minimum payment for players, and you got the US United, for example, United Soccer League Player Association, making sure that players are being protected, so on and so forth. So we're seeing all these developments, stadium developments are better, so on and so forth. And going back to Canada, as I was born and raised from my backyard, 2019, they launched the CPL. So that was the year that our first professional league came. So that makes a big difference. They've been on, what now, 5 years? So yeah. And third, to answer the question, going to different countries helped me develop my perspective and learn about different cultures. So very appreciative of that.
Of course. And I mean, these learnings also, how the soccer football is different in every country, must be good if you're advising a younger talent, maybe their playing style works better in one country than the other. So that's an experience now you can use to help the players that you're helping.
Yeah, 100%. So I think you asked me this before. I want to add on to it too. And to this last question is that all my experiences were experiences of a player that really wanted to go pro, had the ability, but came across certain situations that I didn't know I was going to come across or wasn't told about. So now that I've been through them and I've interviewed 200 plus people, 100 of them being professional players, hearing all these different stories. And as you know, when you do interviews, you can see certain patterns. So especially when you do a certain type of style podcast for 100 times over, specifically for me was a hashtag Pro Soccer Talk playlist where I interviewed MLS players, United Soccer League One, USL Championship, NISA players, and players international that play professionally at different levels. There's a certain pattern and information that I've learned that was like, okay, there's not one pathway to go pro, and it's actually pretty simple. So it's either, I'll just share it quickly. It's either you go to college, university, and then you get picked up by a club. But in regards to MLS, there's the MLS draft that picked less than 100 players. So you have thousands of kids in university, in college, and you're telling me less than 100 players are selected for the MLS draft. So that's one pathway. But then you also have the other leagues underneath. You have the USL Championship, USL One clubs, and NISA League, or MLS Next Pro picking players as well. So that's another opportunity for college and university students. But the numbers are off. And what I mean by the numbers are off, you have around 400 to 500 clubs in the US, and then you have thousands of players. So players sometimes that I've realized is that they don't understand that there's not enough jobs. So you're going for a dream that's already hard to attain. You need to be mentally prepared because the transition, this is another thing, the transition after your soccer career is hard for some people. I'll leave it at that. That's why I think it's so important for us, for athletes in general, to understand what they're going up against, because the effects after playing a sport for 10 plus years and then not having a proper plan of what you're doing after sport can deteriorate a person.
Are you implementing the post-career advice, counseling in the One Soccer Nation as well, or is it more focused on the playing career?
Yeah, we have to implement that. I think that's so important. For me, if a player that's going to college and university is not having the right intention and plan behind what they're doing, if they're just going for, they're like, I just want to go to school for soccer, that's not the right mentality. In my perspective, to go about soccer. You can get injured and you're done. That's for all sports. You have to have a backup plan. And I would never say that before as a player perspective. But knowing what I know now, if you get injured and you're not able to recover from that, what are you doing next? And if you don't have that in place, you're going to go down the rabbit hole of negativity, of maybe depression or all these negative thoughts of why did this injury happen, or why didn't I go pro, whatever the case may be. Because you were an athlete for 10 plus years, this is your identity, and you don't see anything else, right? You don't want that. So our goal is to have that implemented in One Soccer Nation. And the other thing too is when I talk to a player that is like, I'm going to college for finance, I want to get into banking, but I'm also pursuing my soccer career. And if, I want to go pro, but if this doesn't work out or if I get injured, I could do this after. And in my mind, I'm already prepared. So that transition is going to be a lot smoother than a player that gets injured and was like, I only wanted to go pro, and they're stuck for a few years. And to add a few more things, all my experiences, so like the visa I mentioned, we have an immigration lawyer to help with that. We want to help with post-career, and there's so many other things that we could talk about in regards to launching this club.
When do you see the timeline for launching your own club?
Yeah, so our goal is in the next 2 years, from 2024 to 2026. That's taking all the steps to launch, and so that's signing a expansion agreement with the league, claiming a market. So we're looking at a few markets on the West Coast, so down in California, finding land, whether that's finding land to build a brand new stadium or finding a existing stadium in the market and, either investing into it to make it better, and then making the announcement. So there's a few steps that we still got to go through, but where we're at right now is I've put all the pieces in place, built out the business model. We've secured partnerships, strategic partnerships, so that, it goes back to the reality TV show. Those are one of the partnerships. I'm not going to go into all of them. And then relationship, as you know, is key. So with the league, I've been building that up for 2 years with USL and NISA. And then I've recently got connected to MLS Next Pro. So we've been connected with the expansion team for a few months now. So we're at a place, Marcus, where we need to raise capital and then go back to which league we select and say, hey, we're ready to invest into your league and launch a pro club. So that's where we're at right now, is raising capital, which it's taken about a year to get to. So we're now having a lot of conversations, investors investing into this project. So we're at a point now where there's a lot of excitement, a lot of conversation about One Soccer Nation and what we're going to be doing in the next 2 years.
Definitely. That's super exciting. So how does it work when you start a club? Like you mentioned NISA, MLS, you mentioned being an expansion team, but can you go into, if you get an agreement to any league, or do you have to start somewhere and then work yourself up? How does that work?
Yeah, so there's many ways to start a club. There's two ways I see. One way is you either start from grassroots, build up, or you start from the top of the pyramid and build down. So for us, I'm not going to be biased to any league. So you select one league, depending on the league that you select. For example, I'll use USL. There is an expansion fee. And then after the expansion fee, the other expenses are related to the club. So the expansion fee is just to enter into the league that you're going into. And then all your other expenses are going to be an investment into the club that you're launching. Well, it's all an investment. Stadiums can cost anywhere between $10 to $100 million, depending on how big the project is. And for USL 1 specifically, you're looking at building a 5,000 plus seated stadium. The cool thing that investors are doing now within the soccer space is not just depending on soccer revenues. So launching a soccer team. They're also building other real estate projects around the stadium. So they're using soccer as the anchor and doing mixed use development projects. So you could have a soccer stadium, build condos around it, business offices, hotels, retail, you got parking lots, you got roads. So there's these different real estate projects that you could attach to the stadium that you're building. Now, with the project that you're working on, you have to get the city and government behind you. And there are, depending on how big the project is and how long you want it, how long it's going to take, and so on and so forth, there are different type of financial tools that you could use to raise the funds. So again, my background, I'm a soccer guy at first. I have an accounting background as well, and then entrepreneurship, so on and so forth. So learning this has taken 2 years to learn and connecting with all these different people in the space. Knowing everything that I know now, it's so cool on how it comes together because before my mind was just, I was just on the field. But now I understand everything that goes around the field.
Now you're more on the business side. You used to be a player and now you're moved on to the business side. That's super exciting. I can't wait to see how this plays out and I will follow this super closely. You mentioned before the podcast, I don't know if you mentioned the name, it's called the One Soccer Nation podcast. And, you mentioned 200 plus people that you have talked to from different leagues. So how much have you learned through having the podcast and how much do you think that that can be a tool for teaching players and people who wants to learn more about soccer?
Yeah, I've learned a ton from podcasting. And the cool thing about it too, not only are you going to learn, you're going to network. If you really work it, you're going to connect with a lot of people. So if it wasn't for the podcast, I wouldn't have connected with 250 plus people. And with the technology that we have, Zoom, you can connect with anyone around the world at any time. So honestly, I would say that if you could use it as a tool that will benefit you, use it.
Yeah, for sure. Has there been any bumps on the road in your career? And if so, how have you overcome them?
Yeah, many bumps. Somebody that I've had on the podcast that's close to Sweden, that's now in the US, Marcus Wufferson. And something that he said in the interview that I love. If you love something, I'm going to quote him here. If you love something, there's always going to be ups and downs. And it's up to you to choose to stick through it. That's all it is. It's going to happen. It's life. Stick in it and you'll make it to the end. And I'll just share a little bit about that. What he was talking about was he started a club during COVID. So I was like, why did you start the club during COVID? He's like, because I believed in it. I was like, that's powerful right there. At a time where no stadiums were holding fans, to launch a club at that time, I said, wow, that's amazing. So for me, it's the same thing. And I just wanted to share that. So for me, it was just always sticking through things and knowing that this time will pass. And a quote that I want to just drop here by the book, Think and Grow Rich, Napoleon Hill, a winner never quits and a quitter never wins.
That's a good one. That leads me also into like if you have any advice, what's some great advice that you have been given or received?
Yeah. What I would like to share is something that I heard yesterday from my mentor, Jay Waterman, founder and CEO of BlockStation and Aliens.com, is I believe that, and I'm sharing this, just sharing, I think that, I'm quoting him actually, you got to know what you're naturally good at, know what you love, and know what you hate. And then focus really in on what you're naturally good at and what you love, and you'll work on it and it won't be work, it'll be fun. So this project that I'm working on at One Soccer Nation, I've invested a lot and there hasn't been a lot of ROI yet, but I'm in it for the long term. That's the other thing, because I have intense intention with the vision. So I'm in it for the next 10, 20, 30 years. This is for life. And I was just talking to a friend yesterday and I was saying that same thing. I was quoting Jay on those three things. So I think if somebody could stay in a line with that, figure that out, and once they figure that out, really double down on what they want to do, magical things will happen. Or another word I'll use, miracle. So miracles will happen, things will align, and certain things will just come. So for me, I'll share how what I'm saying helped applies to me is after soccer, I didn't want to do anything else. Like I didn't want to be in any other space. Soccer is a language. And I know for me, I always wanted to stay in the game. I didn't know how that was going to be possible after playing. But there's so many other things within the beautiful game that you can do. You can do coaching, scouting, agent, analyst, assistant coach, start a club, And there's different ways you could help people in the game. And again, at the time, I didn't know I was going to be able to do that. But now doing it, it's just like, it's amazing because I don't have to learn something new. It's something I've been doing for 2 decades now. So I love it. I love the beautiful game. It brings people together. It brought us together. And I'm so appreciative, Marcus, for you taking the time to have me on.
Of course, it's my pleasure. And your vision is inspiring, the long term that you have with One Soccer Nation and, your eagerness to learn, to having the podcast, to learn from others. And you mentioned several mentors. So you inspire me. I hope you inspire the listeners. Before we sign off, is there something that I haven't asked you yet that you feel is important to mention?
Yeah, I'll end off with some FIFA numbers. There's 250 million players worldwide playing at different levels, and there's only 130,000 professional players playing. And that's according to FIFA's 2021 report. So, which is 2 years ago, but still, that's not even 1%. That's not even 0.001%. So, what we're doing, I'm so excited about it because it's an opportunity to change people's lives. I probably should have mentioned this early on. Change lives, change generations, and again, provide a platform that I didn't have and build it from a player's perspective. So I'm super passionate, very obsessed with this project and soccer. I'm pretty sure you could tell through everything we're talking about, but I'm super excited about this project, and we're working day in, day out, 9 to 9. So we're going to do it. We're going to bring it to life.
I'm sure you will, and I will be following closely for sure. The last question that I ask everyone is, who from your network do you think would be a good guest on this podcast?
Yeah, I think it would be really good I'll make an introduction to Marcus Watcherson. He owns Sarasota Paradise, which is a USL 2 club. They've had a lot of success. I think they've had 2,000 plus fans come to their games. So that's really good for a USL 2 club. That's semi-pro. And then he's Sweden. So I think you guys will hit it off and he'll share some cool stuff.
That would be awesome. Kareem, thank you so much for taking the time to be on Sports Management Podcast.
Thank you so much for having me, Marcus.
Thank you for listening to the Sports Management Podcast. Please hit the subscribe button so you don't miss out on any upcoming episodes. Also, feel free to leave a comment about what you thought about this episode. If you want to get in contact with me, send an email to sportsmpodcast@gmail.com or hit me up on Facebook, Twitter, or Instagram @sportsmpodcast.